Hello everyone. Today we're talking about how to use a Google Calendar for scheduling and how to create a weekly schedule. First thing I want to say is, being organized is key. And if you've got a Google Calendar, next thing you need to do is connect it with ChatGPT. Once you do this, this will save a lot of time and you'll become much more efficient. Now that being said, let's jump right into the video. In today's video, we're going to discuss how to make a clear weekly schedule framework using Google Calendar workflow. And we're also going to discuss why it's important to have reusable standard operating procedures. Most people just need to work on their scheduling. They just need to get organized. They already know what they should do. They know they need work, exercise, money, family, and business on their schedules. They're just needing to organize it. But if you don't have everything clearly scheduled, everything competes for attention at the same time. The key is to prioritize and plan ahead. That is where Google Calendar becomes powerful. It's important because it gives your week structure, and structure creates consistency. And once you have consistency, you'll be on the right trajectory over several months, and you'll see major improvements across the board. In this video, we're going to show you how to use Google Calendar to create a weekly schedule that works for you. You can use a schedule for work, family, health, investing, personal administration, and long-term goals. The first thing we're going to talk about is how to start with your weekly priorities. Before you open Google Calendar, I always ask, what needs to be protected this week? Most people start with tasks, and that's backwards. Tasks are the small things. Priorities are the big things that matter. I always start with the priorities. For example, your weekly priorities might be work shifts, family calls or meetings, exercise, investing research, personal finance review, meal planning, reading, time to rest, also, just time for a weekly review. Those are all important priorities. The goal is to protect what matters before the week gets even started. Your calendar should prove your priorities. Anything that's important should show up on your calendar. You can take a quick look at, what's went on in the past. Take a quick look at the last 6 months at what's on your calendar, and you can see what you prioritized. That there's key. So in the future, write down what matters and make sure that you're scheduled out in the future, what matters most first. A calendar is a decision system. Second, create your main calendar categories. Inside Google Calendar, you can organize your week by using different calendars or color-coded categories. You can start with 5 lanes. Work, for job, business, meetings, and shifts. Health, for workout, sleep, medicine, and meals. Money, you can have for budgeting, investing, bills, and research. For family, you can have calls, visits, and responsibilities. And for administration, you can have errands, cleaning, planning, and follow-up. The key is just keep it simple and easy to repeat. The goal is to look at your calendar and quickly understand where your time is going. You should be able to know, what you're doing that week, make it easy, and just stay consistent. If your calendar is organized by category, your week becomes visible. Third, add fixed commitments first. The first thing you should put on your weekly schedule should be anything that is already fixed. These are blocks you do not control easily. A few examples: your work schedule, appointments, meetings, school events, family obligations, bills due, medication times, and sleep windows. This step matters because too many people plan their ideal week before they plan, what they've already have fixed in their schedule. So always start with those things first. So go ahead and open your Google Calendar and start placing your fixed commitments. For example, Monday through Friday, 7 a.m., you might have a meeting or something. Have everything blocked out, that you need. You can go right down throughout the day, from your family time to your networking time to your work time. Then after that, you can add weekend commitments. You want your Saturday work, your Sunday work, your family time, as well as your weekly reset. Once the fixed blocks are on the calendar, you can see how much flexible time you actually have. This is where better planning begins. Fourth, use recurring events for repeated habits. This is one of the most useful parts of Google Calendar. If something happens every day, every weekday, every week, or every month, make it recurring. Google Calendar allows you to create repeating events by selecting the repeat option when creating an event. You can set the frequency and choose when the repeating event should end. Recurring events are perfect for morning routine, medicine, exercise, reading, weekly reviews, budget reviews, content planning, family calls, market research, cleaning, or anything else. The reason Really, the reason recurring events are powerful is simple. Because you make the decision once, instead of asking every day, when should I do this? The calendar already answers. And that removes friction. And when friction goes down, consistency goes up. A strong weekly schedule is built on recurring blocks. Fifth, build your weekly schedule in blocks. Now it is time to create the structure of your week. Think in blocks. Here's a simple weekly schedule framework. You have a morning block. Use this for high value activities before the day gets started. Examples, you got your market news, reading, exercise, planning, or deep work. You have your work block. This is your job, business, sales, client work, or main income producing activity. Then you have your administrative block. Use this for small but necessary tasks, your bills, emails, calls, errands, cleaning, scheduling, or follow-ups. You have a growth block. This is for long-term improvement, investing research, skill building, content creation, AI workflows, business systems, and networking. Then you have a recovery block. This includes sleep, meals, walks, family time, quiet time, no phone time, and planning tomorrow. A weekly schedule should not just help you produce more, it should help you make better decisions. Sixth, use tasks for smaller to-dos. Not everything should be a calendar event. A calendar event is time you are committing to. A task is something that needs to get done. Google Calendar can display Google Task when the task calendar is turned on, and tasks need a date to appear on the calendar. Use tasks for things like call the bank, pay credit card, review statement, send message, buy groceries, draft post, check account, or confirm appointment. Here's the rule. If it needs focus time, make it an event. If it just needs completion, make it a task. Seventh, create a weekly review block. The weekly review is where your schedule improves. Pick one time every week and create a recurring event called weekly review and reset. This can be Sunday evening, Monday morning, or whatever time fits in your schedule. During the weekly review, ask what worked this week, what did not work, what got missed, what needs to move, what is the top priority next week, what needs to be deleted from the schedule, what needs to become reoccurring. Where did I waste time, and where did I make progress? This is how you stop repeating the same mistakes. Most people do not need a more intense schedule. They need a reviewed schedule. The review turns your calendar into a feedback loop. You can review, content you created, stock research completed, networking done, business systems improved, personal finance progress, and health and energy patterns. If you review your week every week, your schedule gets better over time. Eighth, use appointment scheduling for meetings. If you take meetings, calls, consultations, or networking appointments, Google Calendar also has appointment scheduling tools. Google Appointment Schedule feature lets you create a booking page, customize availability, and share a link so others can book available times. This is useful because it reduces back and forth messages. Instead, you can always just send a booking link. That really does speed things up. This can be used for networking calls, guest interviews, local business meetings, or anything else. The key is to control your availability. Do not let people book any random time. Create windows. You always want to be in control of your schedule. That's key to success. Number 9, share calendars carefully. Google Calendar also allows calendar sharing on desktop. You can go into a calendar settings and sharing options, then add people or groups with permission levels. This can be useful for family, business, or team planning. But also, always remember, not everyone needs full access to your calendar. You can share family events with family, share work availability with a team, share business meeting availability with other people within your business organization. You should keep private financial or personal blocks limited. Your calendar should help people coordinate with you. That should be the overall goal. Next, build a sample weekly schedule. Doing this right here should give you a good idea of what your week should look like. It should just go through random times through the week of things that are important for you, so you can maximize your efficiency throughout the week. This does not have to be your exact schedule. The point is to create a structure that matches your real life. A good weekly schedule should be realistic enough to follow and strong enough to protect your goals. And that's just a few things that we covered today. Also, one last thing, ChatGPT is an excellent way to be organized and leverage your time correctly. And if you connect Google Calendar to ChatGPT, it makes things a whole lot easier. So that's a pro tip of how to be efficient. So connect, Google Calendar with ChatGPT, and that right there is a easy way, instead of having to fill everything in. When you've got those two connected, it is very helpful and very useful. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below. I'll be more than happy to answer. And if there's any certain YouTube title you'd like me to do a video on, whether it's money, productivity, or anything business related, feel free to leave in the comment section below, and I'll be more than happy to cover that subject. Join us next week for another video on how to be more productive. And please like and subscribe, and you can get a free video every week that will help you in business, stocks, as well as personal finance overall. I hope everyone has a very profitable week and very productive one. We'll see you back here next week.